Imagine working every single day of your life, waking up early, coming home tired, doing everything you were told to do, and still ending up broke. Not poor, not unemployed, just never getting ahead. That is the reality for millions of people right now. And the worst part, most of them have no idea why. If you're interested in money, finance, or changing your financial future, like this video and subscribe right now, because what you are about to learn can change the way you see money forever. Let me tell you about a man named Tarek. He is not famous. He does not have a YouTube channel or business empire. He works a regular government job, earns a decent salary, has a small apartment, and every month after paying his bills, he has almost nothing left over. He's not spending wildly. He does not own expensive things. He just works, pays, survives, and repeats. And when he sits down at the end of each month and looks at his bank account, something feels deeply wrong, but he cannot name it. He cannot explain it. He just knows that something is off. And here's the thing. Tariq is not an exception. Tariq is the rule. Tariq is most people. Now, I want to ask you something honest. If I described Tariq's life and some part of you felt that in your chest, like a quiet recognition, then this video is for you. Because what I'm about to share is not a magic trick. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a shift in understanding that most people never make, even in a lifetime of working hard. But before I get there, I need to tell you something uncomfortable. The reason most people never build real wealth in 2026 has almost nothing to do with how hard they work, and everything to do with a single blind spot that nobody ever teaches you about. I will explain that blind spot in just a moment. But first, you need to understand why the old advice is failing people right now in a way it never has before. Think about what your parents, teachers, or elders told you about money. Study hard. Get a good job, save your salary, be responsible, spend less than you earn. That advice was not wrong when they gave it. It worked for a different world. A world where you could work the same job for 30 years, get a pension, retire comfortably, and die financially secure. That world is gone. And the advice that came from it is quietly destroying people who still follow it. Here's a number that should bother you. In most countries, the cost of living has gone up more than 3 times faster than average salaries over the last 20 years. That means every year you work without growing your money, you are actually getting poorer in real terms. Even if your paycheck looks the same, you are running on a treadmill that is slowly speeding up. And most people just run faster, thinking that is the answer. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Running faster on a treadmill does not take you anywhere. So what does? What is actually working in 2026 for real people? Not billionaires, not tech geniuses, but ordinary people with ordinary starting points. That is exactly what we are going to get into. And what I'm going to share with you changed the way I personally think about money in a way that nothing else has. But what happened when I first tried to apply it is something I almost do not want to tell you, because it involves a mistake I made that cost me months of progress. I will get to that. But first, there is something even more important to establish. Most people think about money in terms of income. How much do I make? How do I make more? And that question is not wrong. Income matters. But income alone has never made anyone wealthy. What actually makes people wealthy is a completely different variable. And it is one that the school system never teaches, your employer never mentions, and your bank never explains. That variable is called the gap between what money does while you're not working and what money does while you are. Let me make that simpler. When you work, your time produces money. That is a one-to-one trade. Your hour goes in, money comes out. Stop working, money stops. This is how most people live. But when you build what is called an income-producing asset, that is something different entirely. The asset works even when you sleep, even when you're sick, even when you go on vacation, even when you do nothing. And in 2026, the number of accessible ways to build those kinds of assets is higher than at any other point in human history, which makes it even more heartbreaking that so few people are doing it. Now here is where most people get confused, and this is the mistake I want to address directly. When people hear income-producing asset, they immediately think you need a lot of money to start. They think about buying houses or starting businesses or investing thousands in the stock market. And they shut down before they even begin because they do not have thousands. They have maybe $50 left over after bills. And so they convince themselves this path is not for them. That belief is not just wrong. That belief is the actual trap. I'm going to tell you about a girl named Amara. She was 22 years old, living in a city she could barely afford, working part-time at a retail store while finishing her degree. She had about $40 to her name at the end of most months. She was not in a good position by any traditional financial measure. But Amara had one thing going for her. She had absorbed a single idea that changed the entire trajectory of her next 3 years. The idea was this. The internet has made it possible to turn skills, knowledge, and attention into income streams that cost almost nothing to start and can grow without being tied directly to your time. And she was not going to wait until she had more money to start. She was going to start with what she had. Now, I am not going to pretend this happened overnight for Amara. It did not. The first thing she tried failed completely. I will explain what happened in a moment, because the reason it failed is something almost everyone gets wrong, and it matters enormously. But before that, let me explain the core idea more clearly, because most people hear make money online and immediately roll their eyes, and I completely understand why. The internet money space is filled with noise, gurus, fake screenshots, promises of $10,000 a month doing nothing. That world is real, and it is toxic, and it has made millions of people cynical about legitimate opportunity. So let me be very direct. What I am talking about is not that. What I am talking about is identifying a skill or knowledge set that you already have, and then finding the most efficient way to convert it into recurring or scalable income without trading your hours one-to-one. Here is a real example that is completely unsexy and completely powerful. Copywriting. Writing words that sell products, services, or ideas for other businesses. A person with a decent grasp of language and psychology can learn the foundations of copywriting in about 60 to 90 days of focused practice. And small and medium businesses, which represent more than 90% of all businesses worldwide, are constantly desperate for good writers who can help them sell. The average freelance copywriter charges between $200 and $500 per project. A beginner can realistically land one or two small clients in their first month for $50 to $100 each. Not glamorous, but real. And here is what matters. That skill compounds. Each client is a portfolio piece. Each portfolio piece attracts better clients. Better clients mean higher rates. Higher rates mean fewer clients needed for the same income. And this is where most people fail without even realizing it. They look at the beginning numbers and they quit before they reach the compounding stage. They try something for 3 weeks, make almost nothing, feel embarrassed, and go back to the treadmill. And this is exactly what happened to Amara with her first attempt. She tried selling digital templates on a marketplace. She spent 2 weeks making them and uploaded them and waited. Nothing happened. She made 0 sales in the first month. She almost stopped. But instead of stopping, she asked a different question. Not why is this not working, but what do successful people in this space do differently that I am not doing yet? And when she found the answer, everything shifted. The answer was distribution. She had a product, but no audience. A product without an audience is like a store in the middle of a desert. It does not matter how good your product is if no one can find it. And this is one of the deepest truths in the modern economy that nobody teaches you. In 2026, distribution is more valuable than product. The person who knows how to reach people will always out-earn the person who only knows how to make things. Let that sit for a moment, because it changes how you should think about almost every opportunity. Once Amara understood this, she stopped focusing only on making products and started building a small audience on one platform around a specific topic she genuinely knew about. Nothing fancy, just consistent, useful content aimed at one specific type of person. Within 4 months, she had a small but engaged following. Within 6 months, her digital templates were selling weekly without her doing anything new. Within a year, she had quit the retail job, not because she became famous, not because she went viral, but because she understood one rule that most people ignore completely. And now I need to tell you the part that nobody talks about, because everything I have shared so far sounds good in theory, but there's a hidden obstacle that kills more financial progress than lack of money, lack of skills, or lack of opportunity combined. And it is something almost entirely internal. It is the way most people relate to discomfort. Building anything real, whether it is a freelance business, a content audience, a skill-based income stream, or any form of asset-based income, involves a period of feeling incompetent. A period where you are doing the work and nothing is happening. A period where you are comparing your beginning to someone else's middle and feeling like a failure. And the human brain, which was never designed for long-term financial planning, interprets this discomfort as a signal to stop. Your brain reads the discomfort as danger. It says, you are failing, retreat, go back to what is familiar. And most people listen. They retreat. They go back to the treadmill. They tell themselves they tried and it did not work. But here is what is actually happening in those moments of discomfort. They are not failing. They are building. The discomfort is not the signal that something is wrong. It is the signal that something is growing. This is where everything changes. The people who build real income in 2026 are not more talented. They are not luckier. They are not smarter. They just learned to sit in that discomfort longer than everyone else. They developed a relationship with the lag between effort and reward that most people never managed to build. They understood that money does not follow action instantly. Money follows trust, and trust takes time to build, whether it is a customer trusting your product, an audience trusting your content, or a client trusting your skills. Now, I want to go deeper into the specific opportunities that are most accessible in 2026, because the landscape has shifted significantly even in the last 2 years, and there are things working right now that simply did not exist before. But I need to give you one important framework first, because without it, people tend to chase whatever sounds exciting rather than what is actually aligned with where they can win. The framework is this: when looking for any income opportunity, ask 3 questions. First, does this require me to trade time for money forever, or does it eventually decouple? Second, can this be built with skills I already have or can realistically develop within 6 months? Third, does this serve a real, ongoing human need that will not disappear in 2 years? If the answer to all 3 is yes, the opportunity is worth serious attention. If any answer is no, be very careful. Let me run through several opportunities that passed this test in 2026, and I will be honest about what each one actually requires. The first is AI-assisted content creation for businesses. This is not about being an influencer. Businesses of all sizes are now desperate for people who can use AI tools intelligently to create marketing content, email sequences, product descriptions, and social media material that actually performs. The skill gap is enormous. Most business owners are not writers and are not technical enough to use AI tools effectively on their own. A person who can bridge that gap, who can take a business's message and turn it into compelling content using AI tools efficiently, is genuinely valuable in a way that translates directly to income. And the barrier to entry is low. You need a laptop, internet access, and about 60 days of focused learning. But what happened next in this space changed everything for early movers. And here is why timing still matters, even in a world where there is always a new opportunity. The businesses that needed this help 18 months ago are now locked into relationships with the people they found then. The window is not closed, but it is narrowing. The people who move in the next 6 to 12 months will have a significantly easier time establishing themselves than those who wait another 2 years. The second opportunity is audience building around a specific problem. Not content creation generally, not being a creator in the vague influencer sense, but building an audience of people who share one very specific pain point and then solving that pain point in ways they would pay for. This is the model behind thousands of people who have quietly built $5,000 to $15,000 monthly incomes without fame, without millions of followers, and without once going viral. A person with 5,000 deeply engaged followers in the right niche can earn more than a person with 500,000 casual followers in a generic one. And nobody talks about this part: the power of depth over breadth in audience building. The internet has been training people to chase followers, views, and likes as metrics of success. But those metrics are vanity. The real metric is trust. 10 people who trust you completely and believe you understand their problem are worth more financially and more humanly than 10,000 people who barely remember your name. The third opportunity I want to talk about is one that most people in the developing world overlook because they assume it requires advanced degrees or Western credibility. That opportunity is remote knowledge work and specialized freelancing in global markets. Platforms connecting skilled workers to international clients have become remarkably accessible. And the purchasing power differential means that earning even a modest income by Western standards translates into financial transformation in countries where the cost of living is lower. A person in Pakistan, Nigeria, the Philippines, or Indonesia earning $2,000 a month from international clients is not living the same life as someone earning $2,000 a month in London. They are building wealth at a rate their local peers cannot match. This is not a criticism of local economies. It is a recognition of a structural opportunity that exists right now, and that most people in high-growth developing nations are not fully leveraging. If you are in one of those countries and you are watching this, hear me clearly. Your geography is no longer the barrier it was 10 years ago. Your language skills, your problem-solving ability, and your discipline are what determine your ceiling now. And that ceiling is genuinely higher than it has ever been. Here is a reality shock moment. A 24-year-old in Lahore who learns prompt engineering and AI workflow automation and packages it as a service to small e-commerce businesses in Europe could build a 5-figure monthly income in 18 months. Not hypothetically. This is happening. I know because I have seen it. The question is not whether the opportunity exists. The question is whether you will take it seriously before the window changes. But I want to come back to something I said earlier because I left a thread open and I do not want to lose it. I talked about the mistake that costs people months of progress. I mentioned I made one, and I told you I would explain it. The mistake is optimizing too early. When you start building anything, especially an online income stream or a freelance business, the temptation is to make everything perfect before you put it out into the world. Perfect profile, perfect portfolio, perfect pricing, perfect pitch. And while you are perfecting, nothing is moving. You are building in a vacuum. You are preparing to participate rather than participating. And the market does not reward preparation. The market rewards presence. The version of me that cost myself months of progress was obsessing over setting up the right systems, the right tools, the right structure before I had a single client. I was building a business before I had built a relationship. And a business without relationships is just a very organized fantasy. What actually works is this. Start ugly, start incomplete, start talking to real people immediately, and let the reality of the market shape what you build. Your first client will teach you more about what to offer than 6 months of independent research. Your first audience member will tell you more about what content matters than 100 hours of strategy sessions with yourself. This connects to the deepest lesson in everything I have shared today, and I want to say it slowly because I think it is the thing most likely to stay with you after this video ends. The greatest financial advantage you can build in 2026 is not a skill. It is not a strategy. It is not even a mindset in the motivational poster sense. It is a bias toward action in the presence of uncertainty, the ability to move before you are ready, to build in public before you are confident, to offer value before you feel qualified. Almost every successful person you admire financially got there not because they had better information than you, but because they moved when you hesitated. Now let me bring this back to Tariq. Remember Tariq from the beginning? The man with a government job, the decent salary, the comfortable apartment, and the quiet feeling that something is deeply wrong. I want to update his story. Tariq did not become wealthy overnight. But Tariq made a decision 18 months ago that changed his trajectory permanently. He identified one skill he already had, an ability to explain complex things simply, something he had always done naturally, and he started creating short educational content in his native language about topics his professional field covered. He was not trying to become famous. He was just sharing what he knew consistently. After 6 months, he had a small audience. After 9 months, a company reached out asking if he could consult for them part-time remotely. Within a year, he had added 30% to his income without changing his job, without a degree, and without spending a single dollar on tools he did not already have access to. Tariq is not a millionaire, but Tariq is no longer on the treadmill. And that distinction matters more than any number in a bank account. The question I want to leave you with is this. 5 years from now, what do you want the story to be? Not just financially, but in terms of who you became in the process of building something real? Because the money is ultimately a side effect. The main product of this entire journey is the version of yourself that gets built through the discomfort, the consistency, and the refusal to stay in a story that was written for you by a world that does not have your best interests at heart. You have access to more tools, more knowledge, more platforms, and more opportunity than any generation before you. You are reading this at a moment in history where a person with a phone, an internet connection, and a genuine desire to be useful can build a life that previous generations with far greater resources could only imagine. But none of it moves without a decision. Not a motivation, not a mood, not inspiration, a decision. Made once and then remade every morning when the discomfort shows up, which it will, and the voice inside your head tells you to wait until you are more ready, which you never quite are. And nobody talks about this part, the fact that financial freedom is not a destination you arrive at. It is a practice you show up to, every single day, with imperfect tools, incomplete knowledge, and a stubborn refusal to stay the same. The world will not change for you, but you can change how you move through it. And that change starts not with money and not with a plan, but with the decision that the story you have been living is not the final version. That is the real thing worth knowing in 2026. Not a hot investment tip, not a secret algorithm, not a shortcut to passive income, just the clear-eyed, uncomfortable, deeply liberating truth that you have more power over your financial future than you have been led to believe. And the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is the consistent, disciplined, patient practice of doing the next small right thing, even when everything in you wants to wait. So go back to the 3 questions. Does the thing you are building decouple your income from your time eventually? Can you develop the skill needed within 6 months? Does it serve a real ongoing human need? If yes to all 3, do not plan it. Do not research it for another 6 months. Start it this week. Start it imperfectly. Start it scared. Because starting scared is the only way any of us ever actually starts. Tariq started scared. Amara started scared. And they are both somewhere better now because they refused to wait for the fear to go away first. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial truths are coming next.